Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this pale blue dot that we all live on. My name is Adamantium and welcome to this edition of AAU TCM Podcast. Just the usual announcement for those of you listening to this on YouTube right now. My podcasts also exist on talkshoe.com. You can find the link to the core series in the video description down below. So just for those of you who wanted to listen to and download the full 60-minute podcast for free in MP3 format, you know how we all love free stuff, and that's what we're all about here, giving you stuff for free. So for those of you who want to do that, you can do that. Anyway, on to this particular podcast content. As I alluded to at the end of my last podcast, I said that I was going to be bringing you some discussions that I've had with people on the internet about this train of thought and everything involved in that. Since I've decided to actually start a series of these, because as I've started to collect all the particular discussions, I've found there is quite a lot of them. So I've decided to create a series of them, and today's episode is the very first of them. It's one whole exchange in of itself. This particular exchange, it unfortunately had to result in me blocking the individual because they were just, by the end of it, they were just getting extremely belligerent and insulting. I didn't actually include how that descended towards the end. I basically just cut out anything that was irrelevant to the particular, conveyance of the exchange. 'Cause for one thing, to keep everything in would make this podcast about 5 hours long. So I just decided to keep it relevant. But basically it was messages that were going back and forth, starting with their message. So I will waste no more time and head straight into it. So here we go. Quote, "In any group of people, you will get some who get the idea and understand it for what it is, and you will get others who want to use the idea to build something else. And perhaps TZM has suffered in the past from people who are trying to use the idea." And my response, use the idea for what? Money? Power? Sex? Drugs? Her response, not necessarily. And just because it doesn't have a leader at the moment doesn't mean there aren't people plotting away in the background. It's sort of human nature for people to see a powerful idea and jump on the back of it. And power is intoxicating. Even if they see themselves as doing good work, you doing the right thing, it's easy to get carried away with it. It must have some kind of central organizing body, etc. Otherwise, who put up the official TZM website? And my response, if someone takes the idea and runs off to use it in some way, then boom, they have created an intrinsic flaw. They have made themselves a leader in some capacity, and a rather corrupted one at that. TZM will never have a leader because the very philosophy in the operation is that we are all encouraged to become our own leaders and also inevitably dissolve the organization itself. Therefore, not needing leaders of any description to do what we do. It is a holographic, leaderless, voluntary movement, and in fact, almost, as it were, an anti-institution. The official website is created by those who can, not because they are put in some sort of position of any governing body, so to speak. And her response, the point of Marxism was that it would be a bottom-up system rather than a top-down one, and the central ideas are very similar, although obviously they come from historically very different perspectives, and history has shown us that any organization like this eventually becomes hierarchical, alas. And my response, and don't even get me started on human nature. What did Marxism envision in terms of machine automation? What did Marxism envision in terms of the use of money? What did Marxism envision in terms of a value system? Her response, well, as it was well over 100 years ago, I would depend on whether you were talking about Marx and Engels' original ideas of things that were written since. My thesis was on the failed idea of the liberal individual as someone who always sought to maximize his own needs. And my response, then it can't be Marxist if it is not the same as what was purported over 100 years ago. Her response, it can be Marxist, but not pure Marx. I think you are looking at what he said 100 or so years ago. He was definitely in favor of mechanization, and there would be no need for money. The central idea is that every person would contribute what he or she could and would receive what he or she needed. And my response, okay, I can tell you're analyzing an RBE compared to Marx and Engels and your thesis. I need to make something clear. If you pursue this line of analysis, you're going to perpetually think about an RBE in comparison to Marx and Engels. I appreciate if that is your frame of reference for what seems to be the only alternative to capitalism. However, if you have researched into, say, anarchism, for example, you will know that there are many alternatives, and an RBE is unlike any system that has been proposed before or existed before. And her response, so to use a modern idea, Marx would have said that the home you lived in would be determined by the size of your family, not the size you could afford. And my response, and I can also see another difference between Marxism and an RBE. Not every person is needed to contribute. Only around 5% of the human population is needed to keep things running. The other 95 can enjoy life. And even better than that, it's all voluntary. Voluntarism was never even proposed by Marx or Engels. And her response, and Marxism isn't my only term of reference. I'm an academic and my sphere is political philosophy and law, so I've studied many different ideas and how they've evolved over the years. I'm not comparing TZE, not sure what RBE stands for, to Marx for no reason. What I was saying is that from what limited information I have read, it seems very similar to Marxism. What happens if you don't get people needed to contribute? Obviously, a certain amount of freeloading is inevitable, and don't you think that people would be thinking, why should we work when no one else has to? My response, now please stop comparing an RBE to Marxism. It does not fit. TZE? RBE stands for resource-based economy. You see, you're trying to analyze it and pick it apart to compare it to Marx and Engels without even knowing what an RBE stands for. And her response, I think the ideas and the issues are very similar. The ideas for a solution might be different, and that's obviously conceptually a big difference, even though it might appear so if either idea was properly trialed. My response, tell you what, how about you drop the Marxist comparison crap? Look at the information on an RBE in an objective manner without comparing it to anything. And her response, I am, and I'm educated in knowing exactly how to analyze these things, and I'm damn good at it. But if you want to call my observations crap, then that's completely up to you. My response, I'm not calling your observations crap. Stop deliberately grabbing the wrong end of the stick. You know that's not what I said. There is a wealth of info at www.thezeitgeistmovement.com. I don't know if the activist orientation has been updated yet, but even if not, it's an enlightening read. One thing you will find is that we spend a great deal of time reassuring people what an RBE isn't. So I hope you won't be offended by having your Marxist comparisons dispelled. And her response, see, this is why people have jumped on the cult thing. I don't think TZM is a cult, but if you can't appreciate another perspective without calling it crap, then it seems like a kind of fundamentalism to me. The Marxist comparison crap is exactly what you are saying. I can happily compare it to other political philosophies too, but Marxism is the one that struck me as having similarities in some aspects. And my response: I don't care about the assumptions of those who are scared to think. It bears nothing on me if the intellectually lazy want to assume if they want to assume I'm part of a cult. I'm not here to pander to them, because I'd be wasting my time when instead I can be talking to people like yourself who hopefully are capable and willing to look at it and assess it on its own merits. Here's another thing. No cult on the planet has an ultimate goal besides its own perpetuation. You can call it fundamentalism all you like, but how long do you want to procrastinate and linger on what it sounds like and instead have a look at what it objectively is? Believe me, I can understand the Marxist-communist comparison. It's a form of intellectual laziness combined with a fearful prima facie association that is taught to us in this culture. We are taught that anything that proposes a betterment of our lives must be Marxist or communist by association. When the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights was first written, you know what people said about it? This sounds like communist propaganda. This is the Bill of Rights we're talking about. And her response: I'm not scared of Marxism. As an idea, it's something I've always been very excited by. I have also worked with the idea of cultural creation of reality, so please don't lecture me on intellectual laziness. If you've read the breadth of what I have, you would perhaps understand the difference between what I have actually been saying and what you have decided I'm saying. I'm perfectly aware of what you're saying about cultural myths created around things we're scared of and don't understand. I'm perfectly aware of the idea of false consciousness and of the attraction of conspiracy theories. Oh God, here we go. What I was saying was merely that a lot of the basis of what I've been reading regarding TZM reads a lot like the basis for Marx. I'm not saying TZM's solution is exactly the same, but it certainly bears comparison. But it's a comparison, not me saying it's the same. I'm saying that it has a lot of similar elements. Frankly, what I was saying was that what comes from you sounds like fundamentalism. You know the way you get people in any belief system who take things to the nth degree? Anyone who believes that what they say is right and what those who have different beliefs are either mad or bad is a fundamentalist in my book. Again, I've written about fundamentalist Christian groups, and never mind the Muslims. Fundamentalist Christians are about the scariest people I've ever met. But if you can't understand the difference between a comparison and a criticism and appreciate that my comparing TZM with Marxism wasn't a criticism, then I don't know what else to say. And my response: okay, I can sense a little bit of tension. I'm not here to lecture you or be your enemy, and it doesn't matter how many books you've read or written. Information is just information, and there's no reason to get bent out of shape because of it. As far as I'm concerned, we are both the same on the fundamental level as human beings. We're both equal, so let us carry on behaving as such. I'm not saying you're scared of Marxism. All I'm saying is an RBE isn't Marxism. It's not my